bit strange maybe for all of us to be
This meeting is being recorded.
As a group on Zoom, I suppose. But first things first, just you'll have heard some of the notifications there. Couple of very important things to tell you, and then I'll tell you how the evening runs. My name is Angelina Nugent. I'll be your host this evening for the interviews, but we have lots of other great activities happening in and around the event this evening. The event here, the main hall, this is our main hall, is being recorded. The event will be edited and broadcast at a later date. The breakout rooms that you'll have a little bit later on are not being recorded. So it's just to make that very clear to you, just so you're aware of it. You'll have to have accepted a little notice on the screen anyway, so I'm sure all of you will have seen that at this point. You're welcome. That's the first thing. Thank you all for taking time out of your Thursday evenings to be with us for this very interesting seminar, very topical seminar, Volunteers in Sport. Without volunteers, we're nothing. And we're here with thanks to Mayo Sports Partnership, who, as always, are doing a very, very good job in promoting the elements of sport that are sometimes, I think, perhaps forgotten, or we might not take into account in day-to-day running and racing when it comes to looking at sport, viewing sport, going along to sport. So we'll very much highlight the role of volunteers throughout the course of the evening. So, as I mentioned, I'll be your host for this evening, and I'm going to speak to a number of special guests here. So we will have 4 special guests. You're all very special to us throughout the course of the evening. And they will include Shannon Sweeney, who we'll speak to very soon. Shannon, of course, a very prolific boxer on not just an Irish stage, but an international stage at this stage. Lee Keegan, who's a Mayo and Westport footballer, you'll all be very familiar with as well. Micheál Schlingerman, who again has graced the codes of Gaelic games, but also very prolific in the world of League of Ireland soccer. And we'll speak to rugby's Dave Heffernan a little bit later on in the evening as well. But I mentioned breakout rooms. So throughout the course of the evening, this will be very much about interacting and learning from those experts that we have a plethora of within this county and further afield. And interspersed with the interviews will be a chance to go to these breakout rooms throughout the course of the evening. And the breakout rooms will allow you to hear from these experts. You don't need to worry about hopping off or hopping on calls or having to do anything. We have the very experienced Liam Horan here with us this evening, who's running this event. And Liam will make sure that if you have any problem getting to the breakout room, he'll get you there. So when we finished our first interview, which will be with Shannon Sweeney in the next couple of minutes, you'll have a chance to go to the breakout rooms for the first time. Now, there's a plethora of them. You'll see the notifications on your screen, but I know that the most up-to-date list included men's and ladies football and hurling. That's one breakout room. Camogie, soccer, rugby, athletics, badminton, golf, basketball, triathlon, cycling, fishing, and we have a green room that some of you will have been in at this stage as well. But you can see from that so many disciplines are covered, and there's a wealth of knowledge. I've spoken to some of these people in the green room already, and they're coming in from every aspect of sporting life, and they'll speak to you this evening. So they're just some of the breakout rooms that will be here throughout the evening. So, for example, after the first interview, you might choose to go off to the soccer breakout room. For the second one, you may turn around and go to X or Y, room. It doesn't matter. You can sample them at whatever stage you want. And you can absolutely, as we said, don't panic if you don't see a notification on your screen when it comes to it. Liam will guide you through that and get you into the breakout room or the one that you want to go to. So hang tight, basically, if you don't see a notification, and get one to select when you go to it. Now, as we said, the event is being recorded. And we are not recording the breakout rooms because the breakout rooms will be a little bit less, when I say formal, we won't be too formal here this evening. We're all among friends, but you can learn a little bit more about the sport in question. The development officers from, as I said, various disciplines will be there. You can, chat to them if there are specific questions or specific elements you're wondering about. There will be presentations in them, and we'll have some of the sports stars from the various interviews that will be going along to those breakout rooms, and you might want to ask them some questions as well that aren't covered in the interview. So I hope that all makes a little bit of sense, but we'll help you. We'll guide you along the way, so don't panic at any stage. Now, I know that we are due, and again, forgive me if I'm overshooting the runway here, Liam, we are due to be addressed by the chairman of Mayo Sports Partnership, Councillor Michael Loftus. So I'm hoping that Michael is on the call, because we will get Michael to address you now if he is at this point.
Not just yet, Angelina.
Okay,
no.
That's perfect. Well, you know what, Liam, if you're happy, I might just keep moving with the interview side of it, because I know there are people, sports stars, who are joining us who have various other commitments, and we might just keep moving with that. And as soon as Michael is on the call, we'll get a chance to hear from him as well. So we'll just keep things moving at this point. So our first guest, as we said, is a very, very prolific sports star, Shannon Sweeney. Now, if you were at all interested in any sort of sport over the last few months, you'll have been reading, you'll have been hearing, you'll have been watching various updates about Shannon, because she's had some huge success over the last while, and she's going to tell us more about that. But obviously, she's going to tell us more about our theme tonight: volunteers in sport. Without volunteers, we're nothing. And I think, and not just saying it because Shannon is here, from my experience working in local sport for a long number of years, and lots of you will be aware of this, volunteerism is hugely important in boxing, and you'll see that very much club, community, grassroots support that helps get boxers like Shannon to where they are. And I think that's going to be very interesting to tease out. But Shannon, listen, good evening, welcome. Thank you for being with us, because you're in Dublin at the moment, isn't that right?
Yes, that's correct. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
So listen, as I said, you're in Dublin. We'll chat about your success in just a couple of minutes. You're looking festive there. They'll see the Christmas jumper at the top of the Christmas jumper on you. You have your Christmas party tonight, isn't that right?
I do indeed, with the high performance team. Yeah.
Yeah. I said to Shannon, will you be letting the hair down a little bit? And Shannon's answer was a bit of food. We'll relax with a bit of food, and that's about it. So Shannon's Christmas party is a bit different, I think, maybe to my idea of a Christmas party. That's why you're the star that you are, Shannon. Listen, you're fresh from that European success in Montenegro. How was that?
It was an amazing experience. To represent my country at the highest level is something that dreams are made of. So it was an amazing feeling to represent my country, but it was an absolute bonus to bring home a bronze medal back to my local community. But yeah, it was an amazing experience to spend it with such a great group of girls that we all encourage each other each step of the way. Yeah, it was an amazing opportunity that I was lucky to have.
You're on a stage like that, you win a bronze medal. I know it's your country, you're representing your country, and you did that with such panache and style. But does your mind then travel back to your club, to your home, to where it all started for you?
Yes, absolutely. If you'd asked me 10 years ago, would I be in this position, I would have absolutely laughed at you. But it all just goes back to the volunteers, as you said, like the club, the coaches that give up their free time to put all of the hard work into each and every person. Like it's not for everyone, but they take hours out of their day to give us all the work we need to be where we are today. So I'm very thankful for that. And we wouldn't be the people we are today without the volunteers that keep coming in, showing up, putting all the time and endless hours into us. Yeah, very much appreciated.
Yeah, so tell us about your start off in the world of boxing. When did you take up the sport, Shannon?
So I took up boxing at the age of going on 11, I think it was. We just started for a bit of fun at the time. Me and a few of my neighbours and my sisters, we just started off for a bit of fun. And yeah, I just seen it as a hobby. I didn't really see myself going far into it. I didn't think much of it. Yeah, and then I started taking it seriously once I started getting into competitions and I was winning competitions. And I could see, for instance, Ray Moylet, what he had done for his local community, and he trains in our club. So seeing what he'd done, I eventually thought maybe I could go on to do something great like that. So kept giving it my all in the gym, in the boxing club, kept entering competitions, won my first national title in 2014. And since then it's been a bit of a roller coaster. 10 years or 12 years down the line, here I am, 8 Irish titles. But yeah, it was all a bit of fun at the start. I didn't see myself where I am today. So it just shows what a bit of hard work and dedication really brings.
What they can do, absolutely. Have you any standout memories then from your, we'll say first day, or not even first day, if that's very specific, your early years in the sport? Is there anything that stands out that was maybe a moment that you thought, you know what, this is for me, this is more than just the hobby?
Yes, winning my first national title in 2014 at 46 kilos, I thought my coaches, Martin Brennan, seen a lot of potential in me, and because I was a southpaw awkward, a lot of people don't like that. So since then, he put a lot of time into effort over the years. But yeah, winning my first national title would have where it all started. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned Ray Moylett as one of your influences there, and I very much remember that period of time where Ray was, shooting the lights out when it came to amateur boxing. And I know he's doing that at professional level all over again now. Were there any other big influences on your career early on? I know Martin Brennan is mentioned by everyone who goes through St. Anne's Boxing Club in Westport. He's just such a huge personality there.
Yeah, absolutely. You look up to there would have been a girl in the club, Katie Hyland. I'm not sure if you know the name, but she would have been a massive impact for women's boxing in St. Anne's. And I would have looked up to her. She went on to do great things, represent Ireland. And yeah, she would have actually had a massive impact from coming up through the years. And then she shortly gave it up a couple of years back. But she would have been the girl that we looked up to in the club. And like that, there's many, Ray Moylett coming in and out, and Tom Moore, and he was another, Peter Mullen. Yeah, you really look up to them and seeing what they done down through the years. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned the Irish title was probably a turning point for you, where you thought, okay, there's maybe more to this than a hobby. Then you have to take it another level when you're in a high performance squad, I'd imagine. So was there another turning point or a light bulb moment where you decided, okay, I'm going to pursue this at an even higher level than I have been?
Yes. When I entered my first elite title, so that's the biggest competition in Ireland, the National Elites, I won my first National Elite title in 2017. That was a major factor. What drove me to be at the highest level. Winning that had really just encouraged me more to keep going. That I actually was good at the sport. But yeah, I've entered 4 national elite titles and I've won 2. But yeah, that was definitely where I had started the highest level.
Yeah, onto it. Yeah, absolutely. It's not to dwell on a negative side of things or anything like that, and we'll move back into the very positive again. But were there any stages in your career where you might have had negative experiences early on that could have potentially turned you off pursuing the line that you did?
Yeah, I would definitely say so. I mean, in the field of boxing, everything doesn't go your way. You're in competitions, it's a big risk. Like you give up everything, all the endless hours in the gym making weight. And when you think you're going into fights, you give it your all and you think you've won the fight, but it actually doesn't go your way. So I would say that's a massive turning point in anyone's career. Sometimes you feel like giving up and what's the point? But I would say that has brought me to where I am today. All the losses have really drove me to the success today. And another factor I would say was my nose caused me a few issues back down through the years, that some vessels I had to get burned in my nose. So that happened 8 times. So I would say that kind of turned me off boxing somewhat. But we got it sorted in the end, and thankfully I haven't had an issue since. Yeah.
But yeah, that's very topical. The win, thinking you've won about. Obviously, we've witnessed a lot of that at a very high level over the last number of years. On a greater scale, do you think that's had an overall negative impact on boxing, where we watch some very, very dubious judging decisions, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And many of the boxers go through it, and it's not a nice feeling. I wouldn't recommend it on my worst enemy, but sometimes these things happen in the sport, and that's just something you have to take with a pinch of salt. It's how you come back from those losses, and yeah.
Yeah, it shows that determination, that grit we were talking about off camera.
Yeah.
I was saying to Shannon, I think, you know, there are a lot of people out there who probably think they're, and may very well be excellent at their chosen sport, but it just takes another level of grit, determination, and I think mindset to get to the level that you're at. Shannon, you mentioned some of them probably, but was there an overall, a childhood hero before you maybe ever ventured into the world of it? Like you mentioned, you picked up boxing maybe as a hobby at 11. So was boxing a big part of your life before that or not?
No, it definitely wasn't. I wouldn't have thought about it. I know my brother had joined it, but I didn't think it was for women, to be honest, until the likes of obviously Katie Taylor. She would have had a massive impact, I'm sure. A massive impact on women's boxing, and that's why women's boxing is what it is today because of Katie. But yeah, I would say Katie would have been is and still my hero, what she does for women's boxing. And
was there anyone else then? Not at all. But I'm just interested, not trying to put you on the spot, but then outside of boxing, you know, prior to that, was there anyone else that was kind of someone that you looked up to in those early years before you even took up the sport of boxing? Anyone stand out?
I would say my brother is really what really kicked it off for me when he first joined, and then I looked up to him, and that's when I maybe decided to take up the sport, and here I am today.
Yeah, you've mentioned some of the kind of the guidance that you got at St. Anne's, the people you looked up to very much within the club there, and still do. I know that. What about now? And you've mentioned that, you know, the high performance side of things, and you said to me before we joined the main hall here, they look after us really well up here. So obviously there's a good structure. There's you feel that this is the right direction for boxers like yourself to go.
Absolutely. There's only so much that your club coaches can take you until you're at the highest level. So the coaches here in Dublin are absolutely fantastic. They give us everything. Give endless hours in the gym. We get put up in hotels. We get well looked after in Dublin. But it all just goes down to your club coaches. Like without them, I wouldn't be where I am today. They're the ones that have really put in the endless hours and really give us that bond to have with the coaches. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be where we are today in the high performance. The volunteers, the women behind the scene, the coaches behind the scene, they really put in a lot of work to us.
Yeah, certainly. What are the main kind of things you've learned from them? I know you've learned to be a really good boxer. I definitely don't need to be taught on that. But what are some of the things you'd have learned from those influences in your life, do you think?
To surround yourself with positive people and energy, building a bond with them. They're like father figures. They're like family.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that, to surround yourself with people that I suppose support what you're doing going forward.
Yes.
What about yourself? You've spoken a lot, and that's what I love about it. You've great passion about the coaches who have had such a positive influence on you. Do you see yourself going down that route, do you think?
Absolutely. I would love to be an inspiration to the ones coming up in the club. I would love for them to look at me as and the next Katie Taylor. But I would definitely see myself getting into coaching. I'd love to give back to the community, because they have given me so much. So I would love to give back to them and go down the coaching route in the future.
What would be, maybe you've answered it already with the last one, I'll start wrapping up on this, Shannon. What would be the things that you think matter most then? If you were the coach in the morning, what are the things that you think matter most to those young people, putting yourself, having gone through those various stages yourself?
Understanding everyone, because everyone comes from different backgrounds. I would say a massive one is building a bond. Me and Brennan have a bond like nothing else. I would say definitely building bonds with each of the athletes in the club, creating a positive surrounding so everyone enjoys it. But yeah, I would say they're the main ones that would.
And before I let you go, we're going to see, you mentioned you want people to see you as the next Katie Taylor, and you're definitely on a great path to doing that. So we're going to see plenty more of Shannon over the next few years. Yeah, what are your main aims for the next couple of years, Shannon?
So obviously next year is the Olympic qualifiers. So in January we have the Elite Championships, which I was talking to you about earlier. So I'll be moving up to 50 kilos from 48 kilos, which is an Olympic weight. So it's a big year next year, just obviously trying to qualify for the Olympics. So keep the head down and start training. But obviously 2024 is the main goal. So hopefully working towards that.
Well, listen, we can't wait, and we'll all be there 100% behind you. Go off and enjoy your Christmas party now, Shannon. You're not able to let the hair down too much, but anyway, we hope you get to enjoy it. Thank you so much for being with us and joining us this evening and taking time out. It was really lovely to talk to you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks very much.
All right. And that's Shannon. And I know everyone here delighted to see Shannon on this evening. What a breath of fresh air that young lady is, and she has a really bright future in front of her. If you're on here this evening and you haven't heard much about her or read much about her, I would highly recommend just having a little look or a Google of Shannon Sweeney over the next few days, because there's a bright future in front of her. I know everyone has muted their mics anyway, just for anyone who's joined in the last few minutes, because I know people were still joining while we were chatting to Shannon. Just if you could make sure your mics are muted, that'd be great. But everyone is being really well behaved, so I don't need to give out too much at all, which is a good thing for everyone else and probably for me. Now, what I do want to do is go back to an interview, or a chat that we were going to have a little earlier on. And as I said, the chairman of the Mayo Sports Partnership, Councillor Michael Loftus, we're delighted that he was able to join us here this evening, another very busy man. And I know that Michael is just going to give us a little address now. Michael, it's really good to see you. Thank you for taking time out of your evening. And I do know it's a busy time for you. But
I do apologise, Angelina, for actually technical difficulties to get in, but thankfully I persisted and I got in. But
so I'll hand the floor to you, Michael, for the next couple of minutes. Thank you for being with us.
Well, all I want to say really is to thank everybody who is actually online tonight. Thank our speakers, and for them to give their experiences and their knowledge to us is so important. But volunteerism is so important, and at times we feel that we're losing a lot of that. But I feel in Mayo, it's the one thing about our organisations around the county is there's always some people there to help to bring forward other people to the different sports that are involved. And if I may go and think of my own self, I think of badminton. I started badminton when I was 8 in Crossmolina, and we had a great coach and a man who just died recently, a man called John Joe Tolan. And I want to thank him and all the people that were involved then with me to bring me forward for badminton, and it was the start. But I also want to acknowledge the LCDC Training and Education Working Group, who along with us are working on this. But I also, if I can, as well mention Cahill in Sports Partnership, who's organised this along with the other members of the Sports Partnership. Really, I was excited with the presentation he did recently to us, and I just want to say well done to everybody that's involved. I really don't know what else I can say except to thank again the speakers that are going to be involved, and I hope everyone has an enjoyable evening listening to the experiences. Thank you, Angelina.
Michael, thank you so much for being with us, and we do appreciate your time. And yeah, I love that. The badminton story as well. We've all had experience of, I think, volunteers in our community, whether if you're like me, absolutely no good at sport, just tries her hand at talking about it an awful lot, or you're like Michael and you actually take up the badminton and do it. But yeah, definitely the volunteers and the theme of this evening, so important. And it is true, without volunteers, we're nothing. Now, we're going to move to the first breakout session of the evening, and we're going to head off to our breakout rooms. And as I mentioned, there are a plethora of them. I mentioned them earlier. I probably don't need to go through them all again. You'll be able to choose the particular room that you're in without, and Liam explained this earlier on, without getting too technical. If you're in any, oh, well, am I sorry? I thought we were going to the breakout rooms first. Apologies. Maybe I'm wrong there, Liam. I presume I had breakout rooms in between the two interviews. So my apologies on that. That's my fault. I am human, most definitely. So yeah, we can do that. We can go to the next interview. So what we'll do is move on to our next interview of the evening. And I don't think I need to introduce our next interviewee too much either. I think most of you on the call here will be familiar with this particular man. He's fresh from winning a first ever Mayo senior football title with his home club Westport, which I'm sure will come up here in the interview this evening. And also, I think generally regarded as one of the best Mayo footballers to grace a field. We won't maybe ask him to answer that question specifically. Lee Keegan, thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Thanks, Julia, and thanks guys for inviting me. I just took one word which I don't agree. Fresh would be an understatement. I can definitely not agree with that statement, but I'd love to be fresh again. So
I won't ask what you mean by the fresh statement. I'm sure you enjoyed the senior title, but that's not the theme of the evening. You're lucky, Lee. That's another forum. Listen, just on that, I suppose, before we get into maybe the nitty-gritty of your own background and your own specific details about getting involved in sport. Winning that title, I actually spoke to you not long after the final whistle had gone in McHale Park, and I think you described it to me for radio as one of the best moments of your sporting career to date. That, I think, shows a lot, even about what we're talking about this evening, about the grassroots, about the volunteers, about the club, and how much it means to you. So what did it mean to you?
Probably took, I suppose at the time of it happening, it's very hard to sum up into, I suppose, a statement or a phrase or like a big talk about it. Obviously you're elated and joy and everything, but I suppose it's only in the kind of weeks after the appreciation you have for what's happened. And I suppose the biggest thing we took was that we made history for our club, and that's not an emphasis on just the players. That comes down to a lot of hard work over the years. And I see Charlie there smiling away. Obviously Charlie's been a big part of that over the last 5 years as well, engaged with our group. So it's taken a long time. There's been a lot of talk about this group for many years about, you know, potentially producing the goods at the highest level, and that never came to fruition till this year. So thankfully we put a good structure in place, and it's not just this year. You know, we had management last year that put in good work, and the years before that. So, and we had a strong core group of young lads who, you know, thankfully won the All-Ireland Intermediate back in 17, and they're the core group of lads that have come through now, and they're the core of the group that have actually won the title for us. So it's not about the likes of myself or the older guys. It was that core group of lads that have been really looked after from underage right up through senior, and thankfully got 7 or 8 guys that just were pulling the same direction and took us with them. So yeah, when I said that, and I meant that, I suppose we always talk about, and I've been lucky enough to play with Mayo for a lot of years. But when you go back to the nitty gritty of where you come from, what you're representing, who you're representing, and I meant that it's one of the most greatest achievements as firstly a club player, but also been lucky enough playing Mayo. And I said I've been lucky enough over the years to have done some good things, but that was one of the best things I've got to experience with a group of lads that I just love playing with and representing. So.
You have a very strong sense, Lee, and it comes across here this evening. And, you know, I probably picked up on it that day too, of that community and the grassroots aspect of your, you know, your chosen sport or the sport that you've been most prolific in when it comes to GAA. It means an awful lot to you.
Yeah, but it has to. And if it doesn't mean a lot to me, then I wouldn't be like other guys. I wouldn't be putting myself out there to try and achieve things. And, you know, sometimes achieving means you're going to fail a lot of things as well. So that's just part and parcel of elite sports. We heard Shannon talk about that earlier. You know, you take your good days and your bad days, and it's the bad days that make you a bit better. So, I mean, that's the reason we play sport, and why I'm so proud of playing Westport, because and it wasn't that way for years, I'll be totally honest, and Charlie knows this is better than everyone, that if you're not producing at the top table, you're not going to get the goodness coming through, and that took a long time. And unfortunately, myself and Kevin Kane in particular, who've been there since 2006, 2007, had a lot of tough days, and thankfully these guys haven't got to experience a lot of those. We're in a lot of relegation battles, a lot of games where we just couldn't win. And when you have young guys coming through the underage system, seeing that they're not going to come up and play with senior, and they go off and play other sports like the soccers, the rugbies, and whatever else is out there, and that's totally well, because the other teams are doing well. So it was just about getting this group formed together, getting the right manager and getting the right structures in place. And as I said, as a result, good things have happened. And winning the county title is the pinnacle, and I mean that, but the most important thing I've taken over the last kind of 4 or 5 years is been able to dine at the top table with the Castlebarras, Ballintubbers, Ballinaz, and these teams. And when young guys see that, it gives them massive interest, and that's why we're getting the goodness coming through now. So
yeah, it has that knock-on effect, most definitely. Tell us about your background. When did you take up GAA?
Bit late in my career.
Yeah, I know this always fascinates me, but yeah.
I had no interest in Gaelic underage. I was very much rugby orientated, and I was lucky enough to represent Connacht underage up to under 19s, 20s. So I just felt that was just where I was going at. Had to be begged to play underage Gaelic at times. I just not that I didn't like it. It's just I had more preference in rugby and even soccer to a degree. Now I was no way good at soccer, and I'm going to tell that to anyone who's soccer oriented here. I was more of a hatchet man than I was skill wise. So, but it's probably when I got up towards under 21 level. Actually, funny enough, when I was in school, I was obsessed with Gaelic in school. And it's funny, it was Shane and Martin that were my coaches at the time. And I just always forged a bond with those two and their philosophy around Gaelic and how they approach it. So it's no surprise that when the two came on board during the year, that again, that bond was still there. But it was actually the likes of Pat Holmes and Noel Kennelly that gave me a bit of an ultimatum when I was 19 between rugby and Gaelic. And I don't know why, I just again, like that bond, I felt something that was there that could be explored. And again, it's not for the money, or it was for the love of, and of course there was money in pro rugby, but I felt just, I suppose, being more part of the community at home. I was working at home, I had my family, my friends, stuff like that. So that was one key reason why. But just when they presented to me the outcome and the reasons for playing with Mayo, it was kind of hard to say no, to be honest. So I'm very happy with my choice as the years have progressed.
There's a lot of Mayo supporters very happy with your choice as well, Lee, I can tell you. But what are there any kind of standout memories then for you around that time that, as you said, there was a draw, there was maybe, the way Pat and Noel kind of approached it with you, that turned the key for you, that unlocked that love and that passion for you for Gaelic games?
I think it's the way they talked about representing Mayo, and club was involved in that too. I was involved with Pat under 21 level at club as well. So it's the way that I could see the pride, or hear the pride and the excitement and exuberance when they're talking about Mayo and what it meant to them. And I never, and I've said this before in interviews, I never got the club ethos or the Mayo ethos a lot underage. It just never appealed to me, and I never got the concept of what it meant to people. So when Pat and Noel kind of sat down before he played, or before he went into under 21 season, I started to get to notice how much this means to people. And that kind of gave me a huge indicator and a driver to, as I said, explore that. And the more I got into it and the more I got involved, the more I just loved it. And like we're talking about sense of community, I could see what it meant to a lot of people at the club. I could see what it meant to a lot of people that haven't been so lucky to represent me over the years, and that's a lot of my friends. And I could see the excitement by me being involved, what it meant to them, and that just kind of filtered through the next 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And then when James Horan came in, then, and that just really kickstarted for me. I talked about forging bonds with people, but James was the guy that probably really put me in an environment where I was uncomfortable at times. But just, I suppose, the trust and knowledge he passed on to me, and that just came out in spades. And I was so happy that, and I still look back, and myself and James talk about this regularly, that I still thought he was a madman for putting me in when he did, but I'm very thankful for that experience and that trust, and that just built on, and confidence grew as a result. And I'm one of the older statesmen currently as a result, which is a good sign that I'm still going. So
absolutely, yeah. So early influences on you, Lee, they mightn't have come from the world of Gaelic games then, did they? Was it more rugby orientated?
Well, so yeah, I think it's probably a common theme. Obviously, you have to have good parents. The one thing I loved about my parents, there was no pressure to play sport. It was very much, if you want to play and you want to be involved, then we're very much somewhere in support. Yeah. The one thing I got was, if you're going to fail at it, you learn how to fail at it. We can't be picking you up every time there's going to be a bad day at the office. And so I suppose I got to grow up quite quick from that kind of attitude. And listen, I've had more bad days than good days, so I understand totally why they did it to me, and it was definitely a key learner for me. Yeah, but it's funny, when I didn't have GA, I actually loved watching Tomas O'Shea playing from Kerry and Kieran McGeady. Myself, my dad, and my uncle Tony Keegan we've load of family in Armagh, Katie, so we would have followed the Armagh Crusade back in 2002. So that's how I became to love Kieran McGeady, and then the same year I was watching Tomas Shea playing. And so I always said, if I ever was to play Gaelic, I love to play it the way those two: physical, play with confidence, huge leadership and resilience about them. So they were just guys I looked up to, and not necessarily because they play Gaelic, just the way they represent themselves for their counties and how they conduct themselves. And then from a rugby perspective, I always fell for Johnny Wilkinson. I just felt that he was just a huge leader, carried the lad that England team for a long time, and just a guy, when he wasn't injured, just a guy representing himself with huge resilience and leadership. So they're the kind of guys I looked up to when I was younger, but obviously it comes down to parents. And as I went through and I got a bit older, you have to have good structures and people in place. So obviously the likes of my wife now was a huge part of, I suppose, we're out since we were 16, so that'll tell you how much she's seen of me playing sports. So obviously to have that in place and having a happy life, that makes it a lot easier to be able to play at a high level. So I've been very lucky to have good people in good places, and that comes down to, again, people at home, family, but also the club give me that confidence as well.
You speak a lot about luck. You've mentioned luck a lot, but I think people looking in would say, you're so accomplished at the game and the way you've played it over a long number of years. But was there, you said James Horan gave you a choice and you probably thought maybe he was crazy at the time where he threw you in. Was there a point then you thought, hang on a second here now, I'm not bad at this. I'm more than not bad at it.
Yeah, I think it was the James there for the first 4 years. So I suppose what gave me real confidence was the fact he kept picking me, particularly that first year. And he was putting me on quite good forwards from different counties. And I started to realise that instead of looking at it from a negative point of view or being nervous about marking these guys, James sees something that he has complete trust in me to go out and do a job on these type of guys. So the more I kept doing it year in, year out, the more confident I got with been marking some of the best players in the game. So, and listen, when I say luck, I'm not talking about luck as in I just got lucky with the certain characters that came in at certain times of my life. So I talked about the likes of Shane and Martin at school. I talked to the likes of Pat and Owen at under 20 level. And then I talked about the likes of Horan, because the year before I wasn't fortunate enough to play under John Abatney. And you know what? I was kind of happy not to, because I wasn't ready and I wasn't mature enough and I didn't know enough about the game in terms of senior. So the luck came from the certain guys that came in certain times that were able to give me the tools to be able to, I suppose, play the way I want to play. And the only good thing, I suppose, I was never kind of a nervous character when it came to playing games. I'm kind of more of a free floor who likes to play on the edge a bit. So I think James really looked at that as a real positive for himself. And then he put me in a position where I was very confident playing. That just grew and grew and grew. And again, I suppose over the years that developed into probably been a bit older, a bit slower, where we had to be put back in the full back line to try and put up a few fires. But it's just certain guys in certain positions and coaches at the end of the years have just trusted me to do these jobs. And I suppose I remember Andy Moran putting in his book, and I still laugh at this phrase, been the Jesus nut of the squad. I'm obsessed with training, and training probably to the peak. So James used to always say, try and get out of your comfort zone. I was always in an uncomfortable zone when it came to training, and I like to think that I brought a lot of guys with me at that time as well, because I wasn't afraid to get stuck in. I wasn't afraid to try things. I wasn't afraid to speak. Now, I didn't speak a lot in training. Now I'm very much train and show that how I play. So I just the character, and like I said, the longer I got to play with Mayo, the more confidence I build up, and I suppose the guys on the team have to trust you and the managers trust you. So that gave me huge confidence throughout the last 10, 11, 12 years.
Yeah, absolutely. We've spoken a lot about the positive influences and how they've come back, maybe like Shane and Martin back at a time this year that was very, very resulted in something very positive for you. But were there any negative memories earlier on in your, I suppose, maybe underage career or whatever the case may be? As you said, I know you couldn't maybe grasp that club ethos you mentioned, Lee, you know, at that age. But was there anything negative that would have turned you off in the early days, do you think?
Yeah, the one thing I always kind of look back on, I was involved in 3 sports underage, and I just wanted to keep playing and playing and playing. And then I suppose that ultimatum came, but I didn't want that day to come, because I was just loving playing different sports, been out and about, missing school all the time, which was good and bad. But just been able to represent teams constantly and play different sports. I would have played any sport if it gives me any day of the week. So it was a bit of a kick in my arse when I had to go finally pick one, because I was loving just going off training 3 times a day or going to different sports. And so that was a bit of a setback initially, but then again, the older you get, it's not sustainable. So, but like there's been 100 knocks along the way. Been told many times after under 21 that I wasn't good enough to play at senior level, been even at club level at times, just getting my arse kicked by other guys because maybe I took it for granted that, you know, maybe I'm something I wasn't. And then like the lessons over the years that I've taken in terms of getting, like I've lost probably more battles I've won unknown to people, but as I always say, the thing I love about playing elite GA is that it's an education. So them days that are bad, you can take it either 1 or 2 ways. You can go sulk in the corner and feel sorry for yourself, or you can actually try and learn and say, well, what did I not do today? Or how was my prep? Or what can I learn from that? How can I get better? Can I get faster, stronger? And I know they're easy things to say, but when you apply it and you use it in your next training session, or you're in your next, I suppose, jotting down your notes, and you start to apply it, then that's how you're learning. And it might take a week, it might take a month, it might take 3 months. But what I seen, especially not underage, the older I got, is actually COVID came at a really good time for me in terms of my sporting career, because I started to kind of get to a stalemate where I wasn't getting the best out of myself, because maybe I was getting tired, I was getting knocked. So I just got a reset button there, and I just completely explored how I'm going to adapt my body to being in a good position when I get back to intercounty level. And the last 3 years, I've never felt, in terms of been free, been able to play at the highest level. Now, and that's not to say I've taken loads of bad days. Like I look at Shane Welch sometimes, I just run after him, or Con O'Callaghan, or these guys. But by marking these guys again, I'm still getting trust to a job. Doesn't mean you're going to get everything your way, but they're a great education. And say setback is one thing, but progressing and moving on and learning how to get better is the next step. So loads of knocks during the way, underage, right through. It's very hard to probably pinpoint one, but I always think the bad days always make the good days worth it.
Yeah, I had a question here. Do you still love playing your sport? But I'm going to change it around a little bit, Lee, because if you pretend that your broadband or your Wi-Fi is dropping out now, we'll have to come and hunt you down with this one. And I have to ask it. I'm asking you. I've asked you twice now in a few weeks, so I'm starting to feel bad about it. But maybe I'll get a different answer this time. Have you made any decision on your intercounty future yet?
No, and I think it would be rude to say otherwise, because I think it can't be just a decision that's made overnight. Can I just go back to the first part? Do I love playing? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. You can.
No,
sorry,
like
yes,
said,
yeah.
I think regardless of the decision I made, I think it's key to say that I absolutely love playing sport. I love playing GA, and that's the reason I'm happy within my sport, because I love playing sport. Does things maybe negate that sometimes? Yes, I got older, I have kids, I have a family, I have a job, I have X, Y, Z. So all those things need to be considered before I can start making decisions for myself. It's not a thing where I can say, of course, I want to be involved till I'm 50, but you always have to look at the bigger picture. I'm always relying on people full time to make sure they're picking up my stuff at home or work wise or whatever it is, to ensure that I'm able to play at the highest level. So the first question, yes, I absolutely love playing, and I think that was key from the way I celebrated with the club after we beat Ballina. So, and that's always a given. If I didn't love sport, Angela, I wouldn't be playing. I just feel it's a waste of my time and other people's time that are trying to invest in me. So, will I come back next year? I will have a decision very soon, but just not at this moment, because I just need to put a few more things in place before I make for that big decision. But it's not down to love of the game or because I don't want to be involved. It'll be very much down to how life is going to be working for myself. So Sorry, guys. I wish I had a better answer.
I'll tell you,
Sorry.
the next time I ask you, Lee, I'll come back to you in about 2 weeks' time. I'll organise another seminar and
I've been with Alan Dillon getting politician lessons. So
yeah, in fairness, no, you're getting good at them. Listen, Lee, thank you so much for being with us this evening. I think, you know, no more than we had Shannon Sweeney on just before you, and your love for sport and the community and the grassroots involved in that is very, very clear. And that's lovely to see from someone playing sport at your level. So thank you for taking the time to be with us this evening.
Thanks, guys, for organising and invite me. Listen, if there was anything you got out of it, I hope you did. If you got nothing, all good. I appreciate you listening to me, and I wish you all the best and whatever you got. So thanks a million for having me on, guys. So
thanks a million, Lee. Take care. We'll see you soon. That's Lee Keegan. I've lost out my bonus now. I think I was going to get a bonus if I got him to commit to Mayo for another year. But there you go. Lee, I will get you to commit eventually. Anyway, that's Lee Keegan, and really, really good to have Lee with us here this evening as well. We will have a couple more guests join us in the next few minutes, and we are delighted we're going to be speaking to Micheál Schlingerman and also to Dave Heffernan. So we're covering Micheál involved in a lot of codes, but primarily involved in FAI League of Ireland football at the minute, and Dave, of course, an Irish capped player with rugby and Connacht as well. So we'll have lots more to chat about over the next little while, but it is time for us now to go to our breakout rooms, and my apologies for earlier on. I think I probably gave a few people a heart attack, but anyway, what I want to do before I do that is just make a call out, because we weren't quite sure if Mike Murray from Basketball Ireland is on the call. We can't see Mike on it, but I just need to do that for a little bit of admin just to see if he is on the call here. And you can unmute yourself and shout at me if you are, Mike. But I don't think so, Liam. I don't think that Mike is on it. I think you made the right call that you can't see him on it there. We're just afraid Mike might be dialed in on something else, or on someone else's Zoom account, or whatever the case may be. So that's fine. I think that's probably solved that, and you can leave things the way they are, Liam, there. But because of that, we won't have a basketball breakout room. That room will be renamed. I think it's room 13. Yeah, it's room 13 now. Just the way people aren't wandering in there expecting it to be the basketball room. So we will have lots of breakout rooms, as we said: men's and ladies football and hurling, camogie, soccer, rugby, athletics, badminton, golf, triathlon, cycling, fishing. We have lots for you to pick from there as well. So plenty of opportunity to discuss with some of the development officers, you know, even around some of the topics we've heard about here this evening. Maybe it was a couple of negative experiences that Lee and Shannon spoke about. Maybe you want to learn a little bit more about the sport, the work that's going on in communities around that sport, whatever the case may be. All of that is definitely very, very topical and important this evening. So as I said, if you've any trouble in getting into the breakout rooms, hang tight, because Liam will guide you there. It may be down to a version of Zoom that you're running, I understand, if they don't show up for you. So Liam, can I hand it over to you for the breakout rooms then, if that's okay with you?
Yes. So Angelina, I've just opened the breakout rooms, and some people at the bottom of their screen will see that they can select the breakout room they want to go to. Okay. So we let that run through for a couple of seconds. If you can do that, please do. And if not, then whoever's left here. So I think so it depends, as you said, on that version of Zoom you have actually, but some people are finding their rooms. So I'm just going to wait for a moment to let people do that, and then I'll assign those who are left in this room. That's the best way to do this. Okay. So I'll even assign you, Angelina, to a room for a second now. I think you might have an invitation.
Yeah, I have an invitation, so I'll head off.
You can go, yeah.
Perfect.
So as people, just bear with me, and we'll get everybody assigned then. So I'm going to call your name. When I call your name, unmute and tell me where you'd like to go to, which room you'd like to go to. Sorry, I should tell you the rooms, of course. The rooms are on the screen there as well, but I'll give you very quickly what the rooms are here. We have men's and ladies football and hurling together. We have camogie on its own. We have soccer, rugby, athletics, badminton, golf, and fishing, actually. So I'm now going to Charlie. I'm going to send you to the green room. I'm just going to press record here, pause record.
I'm sure, and I know there were a couple of others highlighted to me here, how beneficial those breakout rooms were. And we will give people, and I'll remind people of this, a second opportunity to go back to those in just a little while. As you'll know, we're running slightly behind time. So we just want to make sure that we get our guests in as close to the time we promised them as possible. But even for the games development officers that might be joining us now again here from the various groups, we apologise for coming back in at about 7 minutes past 8, but we will, after our interview section is finished, give you an opportunity to head back to a breakout room if you wish, and you're under no obligation to, but I know some of you might like to get back to the end of presentations. As I said, I was thoroughly enjoying learning about some of the programs that are running, some really worthwhile programs running in Camogie, and before that I was in the Golf Fund, so I got to see a couple of them during that break. So Liam can give me a shout when he thinks most people are back in. I know they're coming back in from
All
breakout
good
rooms.
to go now, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. That's absolutely excellent. And thank you, Liam, for that, for getting everyone safely to their destination, even if it is virtually. You guided everyone safely to those destinations. So as I said, we want to keep things moving in terms of our presentations and interviews, and we have some great guests coming up. I mentioned that to you before we headed off to our breakout rooms. But you know, when it comes to volunteering in sport and the theme of this evening, and without volunteers, we're nothing. And we've spoken about how that is so true. It's a very true statement. When it comes to diversity and inclusion, you know, the volunteerism steps up another level. I think we'll all agree with that. So we're delighted now to welcome Ray McNamara from the Mayo Sports Partnership to chat to us about diversity and inclusion in sport. And Ray, I know from years of covering local sport, the power of work that you're doing day in, day out. So I'm really looking forward to hearing this.
Thanks, Angelina. Thanks for having me on. I suppose I'd like to start with just saying that I'm the Sports Inclusion Officer here with Mayo Sports Partnership, and my role predominantly is to provide and increase opportunities for people with a disability to participate in sport and physical activity. And I suppose the role has changed over the years, and we're highly focused now on the clubs and making them more accessible. And accessible is becoming a big word in terms of disability sport. It's Cara, who is the national body in Tralee, who is Sport Ireland's right hand in terms of providing disability sport and training and all the toolkits and necessary in terms of helping clubs and NGBs and local sports partnerships the pathways for disability sports. So they're driving things nationally, and it's great because they've just launched an accessible club toolkit, which is probably the main thing I want to talk about tonight. We've been working closely with clubs and NGBs across the sporting arena in terms of making clubs more accessible, and we're having great success with the NGBs and with local clubs. Slowly but surely, they're coming on board. And we've been having our own toolkits so far, but now Cara have launched this national toolkit, and Accessible is a program which us as a sports partnership have gone through in the last 2 years, where we were on a pilot program with Cara in terms of bronze and then silver award in accessibility, in which we achieved, and we're the only sports partnership in the country to achieve that standard at the moment. And hopefully next year we'll be going for gold, because it's an area we're highly focused in and want to develop even more. But the Club Accessible Toolkit is a brilliant resource which has just come online for clubs, and it's a step-by-step toolkit that enables clubs to look at the stages of inclusion. I suppose it's great. We run an activity for a group with a disability and everybody is happy. It's a great day out, and then nothing else happens. Whereas we want to create an environment within clubs where, whether it's GA for all or soccer for all, or even rugby for all, or anything like that, that there's a section of the club that is ran like an under 8s or an under 10s or an under 12s for people with a disability or who doesn't want to play sport competitively. And this toolkit now will give clubs a step-by-step. There's 3 phases in it. The first stage is to develop, then it's to embed programs, and then it's to sustain them. And I suppose that's where a lot of things lie, is in the sustainability of these programs, and that's where we're here to help as a sports partnership. All our programs we do now in the sports partnership, we look at 2 things: are they inclusive and are they sustainable? So we're here as a support for clubs to make them more accessible. So if you're somebody on the call tonight in your sport and you'd like your club to become more accessible, then the toolkit will be available through Cara on their website or through the Mayo Sports Partnership website. What I'd say is to download the toolkit and have a read of it first. There's a lot of steps to it, but I've gone through the process with Cara in the accessible for the LSPs, and if you take it step by step and just tick off one by one the steps, that's kind of the advice they give on becoming inclusive. It becomes a lot easier task than looking at something that there's 25 steps to and think, well, where do we start? You started at step one, and if that step is a phone call to me to help you to get on that pathway, then that be the first step you make, and then we can help you then to make your club more accessible. But I suppose, Angelina, that's where I'm going with that tonight, is to kind of give clubs the help if they need it, if they want their club to become more accessible, because we want all clubs to become more accessible. We want to provide opportunities within local clubs, within local communities for people with a disability, so that they can join their local clubs and become members of their local clubs as well.
And that, you know, just before I let you go from the spotlight, Ray, I know you're a very interested spectator here this evening as well, but that is happening more now, isn't it? Like the likes of the toolkit that you've outlined there, which seems to be an absolutely phenomenal resource, we're seeing it getting that integration of having those type of tools available so that inclusion happens. It's happening at a bigger level, isn't it?
Oh, of course, yeah, it's happening. You know, as I said, we've been working already with the FAI, with the GAA, with rugby over the summer. We were working with Badminton Ireland, in terms of making their sports more accessible to people with a disability, and even in other aspects of diversity as well, in terms of working in areas where there's multicultures, in terms of getting them involved within sport as well. And Cathal is doing a lot of work in that area too, in terms of getting other communities within our community involved in our sports.
Yeah. And listen, Ray, as I said, I know that the hard work, it's not today or yesterday you started it. I'm glad to see that it is making progress, and I know that continues, that work continues apace. And thank you so much for taking the time to inform us about some of that this evening.
Thanks, Angelina.
All
Thank
right,
you.
Ray McNamara there, and great to see Ray on this evening again as well. Because as I said, I do know, you know, from experience the amount of hard work that Ray has been putting in for a long number of years, and that continues. But those sort of resources that we've just heard about, that toolkit, and I know that Liam is going to drop that into the chat probably in the next little while, because it's a brilliant resource. I just see it coming into another group here, so we do have it to hand. But I want to welcome our next guest on now, and again, you know, it's great to have this variety of people and guests coming on this evening. It's starting to make me feel you know, a little bit older, because I keep referring to back when I was, you know, a long number of years ago in local sport, and a lot of these guys were playing underage sport, and I certainly wasn't underage at the time. But anyway, such is life. But I'm delighted to welcome our next guest, Micheál Schlingerman, to us this evening. I see he's on the call here, and again, no more than Shannon or Lee, I don't think we need to make too much of an introduction here. Micheál, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and thank you for taking the time and being patient. I know we're a little bit behind time.
How you doing? Thanks for having me. I suppose well done to everybody for taking their own time out of their evening to avoid the World Cup and watch
yeah,
that away, you know.
Yeah, have you a phone or some tablet set up somewhere to one side?
I'll turn it off.
Full concentration. Listen, as we said, thank you so much for joining us. And, you know, I mentioned you don't need much introduction, and people who have, you know, even a passing interest in sport, I think, will have come across you in some discipline, you know, whatever their chosen discipline is, because you've played GAA and soccer and still playing it at an extremely high level. So maybe tell us a little bit about that, or your start in both of those disciplines. Or we heard a very interesting story from Lee Keegan, is the reason I think of it this way, you know, that he had no interest in GAA when it was in his youth. It was all about rugby for him, but you've played both at extremely high levels, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I suppose, look, I was lucky. Again, like everybody else, I probably started at a very, very early age. I think my first memory of Gaelic football would be staying over at a friend's house and going to training the next day because his dad was the manager, and that probably leads again into the theme of tonight, into volunteerism. And I do always remember that particular coaching staff fondly, because when we talk now and we're over at each other's houses, those two dads didn't have a clue about football or anything like that. They were literally there to run the team. And somebody in the breakout group actually said that there's a bit of a fear around volunteering, feeling that you have nothing to offer. But I think my example there is pretty much a perfect example of somebody who might not have the knowledge, but because they have the, I suppose, the courage and that to go ahead and take a team and do that, it leads into a lot of young players' development,
Absolutely. So you mentioned that, staying at a friend's house. I think that's a lot of Irish people's stories of getting involved in anything, isn't it? And going along the next day. But what do you remember about your early days then playing sport? What have you any kind of standout memories from the early days or the first days of you playing?
I think it was just actually being lucky enough to have a very, very strong in Kiltimagh underage team at that time. So success became kind of the norm. And unfortunately, later on in the career, you figure out that it's not always, a successful time, and you do have to deal with those setbacks as well. I think lucky as well to be able to play both, in an area that kind of, the two clubs would have worked with each other quite a lot to make it happen, to allow the younger children to play both sports up until a certain age, and I think that was key for me, in that I never had really any barrier. I was never told I couldn't play the other sport, or the trainings never really conflicted with each other, because I suppose the coaching staff of those age groups and the volunteers of that age groups were very much communicating with each other and allowing the kids to play both, which then led into success in both as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant though, because sometimes we hear the opposite of that, and the fact that was understood at that age level, it allowed you that opportunity, and I'm sure others as well, to do that at a young age.
Absolutely. And I suppose, again, I was lucky that I played in goal, so I could maintain it maybe a little bit longer up until minor and even into under 21s and around that time. And then obviously I had to eventually make a decision then about which route that I initially wanted to follow.
Yeah. What about early influences? It sounds like you had a lot of very positive early influences when it came to sport in your life, and probably outside of it too.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose the early influences for me, funnily enough, would have been like neighbours and like we anybody who knows Kiltimagh, we had the Tech there, it's a concrete basketball court basically, and it was across the road from where I grew up. And I suppose it was the older kids for me, maybe 3-4 years older than me, that would have owned the Tech at that time. So I was lucky to be able to shoot across and play with them. But I suppose the one condition was that I was in goal, and thankfully those influences probably led me to having a career as a goalkeeper because of that, and I suppose I would have come home crying at times, the older lads kicking the ball hard and things like that. But again, it all kind of develops that bit of steeliness and that bit of grit then to continue your career,
Yeah. Then is there, I often wonder, like people like yourself who've played, who are coaching at an extremely high level, is there a turning point then when you're young, where you or in teenage years or whatever the case may be, where you say, yeah, you know what, I'm good at this. I could go somewhere with this. And in your case, it was with two of them. You had to make the call eventually. But is there a light bulb moment, do you think?
It's funny. I think nowadays it's starting to happen a little bit younger, maybe. And again, maybe social media, maybe the exposure of sport, and I suppose the exposure of how successful people can become because of sport is a factor in it. But for me, even at minor, when we're playing in an All-Ireland final, I never really pictured myself playing Mayo Senior or anything like that. And even when I joined my first club up at Sligo Rovers, like I never really thought about playing consistently for the first team or anything like that. So it wasn't until, I suppose, I went out on loan to a club from Sligo Rovers in my second year. I think it was only 19-20. And I was actually still playing when it was the year that Kiltimagh got to the All-Ireland Junior final. So it was that year really that I kind of figured out, you know what, there can be a career in this for me. And then I had to make the decision really to leave Gaelic football behind and pursue soccer.
Now, we've spoken a lot about the positive, and no more than our other guests, you've had very positive influences, thankfully, that, you know, got you part of the way, along with your own determination and work ethic, to where you are now. But were there negative experiences, Micheál, do you think, that could have potentially at that time turned you off sport at a young age?
I was trying to think about it, and I don't think, I know when Leroy was speaking about it and that as well. For me, when I was very, very young, there wasn't really any negative influences, or if there was, I was completely oblivious to it, you know. I was very much focused probably on myself and my own development and how to be the best and all that I probably didn't really take any heed of anything else. It was probably later in my career, you know, mid-20s, when you start understanding, you start looking around and you start being a little bit more experienced. That's when maybe a couple of negative things would have kicked in, you know. What
about childhood heroes? Who were they for you?
Oh, I think for me, I would have really started paying attention to the World Cup and soccer really around 2002, you know, so between 2000 and 2002. And obviously with the German background as well, I was looking, so Oliver Kahn would have been he would have been my little childhood idol growing up, you know, a big, aggressive, angry German, a bit like myself. So, yeah, no, Oliver Kahn would have been, but actually, funnily enough, we would have had our own little local hero in that. Peter Burke was still very, very much Mayo's number one, and he was the county player in the club at the time as well. So I do remember looking up to Peter fondly, and obviously I was too young for Eugene Lavin, but Eugene was always around as well, like, you know.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about where you're at the moment. I mean, you have a lot of strings to your bow. We've spoken about, you know, the Gaelic. I know you've coached with Mayo ladies. You have very high-end coaching qualifications, you know, within soccer. So for yourself, is there a path you see yourself, or is it a silly question, because it seems kind of clear to me, if I'm presuming things, that you see yourself going down eventually?
Yeah, well, I suppose it's actually topical enough for myself. I've gone one step further than Leroy in that I have actually finished playing soccer now as well. I finished back in May with Athlone Town, and I came back to Mayo and finished off playing club with Kilchimau towards the end of the year there as well. So it is very much coaching full time for me now. There's no real competitive sport for me at the minute. But I've enjoyed that transition, and like that, I was lucky that I got to study and I got to get my qualifications while I was playing. So at the minute I'm a UEFA coach educator. So I would coach externally for the FAI in terms of delivering those fundamentals courses, and I actually love the first two levels of those courses for the reason that we're on here tonight, is because those two courses are really about lighting the fire in those volunteers and lighting the fire in those parents who come on the course just to help their kids out and things like that as well. And obviously then we have the Mayo ladies, so this will be my third year now with Michael Boyles and the Mayo ladies as well, and I've thoroughly enjoyed that as well. The big reason I decided to stop playing, you know, slightly earlier than I would have wanted to, or, you know, I definitely feel I'm still capable of playing, would be that I find it's as simple as I think I can impart more wisdom. I think I can actually be more of a benefit as a coach now than chasing the dream still as a player, and maybe, you know, kind of banging my head against the wall for not really big reward, or, you know, anything really significant in terms of returns. So I find the value now will hopefully be in the returns as a coach.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it definitely, I think, you know, your passion for that comes through, and your involvement in sport. Just before I let you go, Liam will kill me because I do take liberties with the time, and I know that, but you've mentioned, you know, you've had so many different highlight moments, but what would be the greatest moment of your career?
I think it's split between two, like in terms of football or soccer. Like, we had a very, very successful team at Drogheda kind of around 2012, 13, 14, even 15. Like, that would be the standout because of, I suppose, the team dynamic that we had. We were successful. We got to cup finals. We played in the Europa League. We had a very, very successful time there. So that'd be like overall a fond memory. Playing in that cup final in the Aviva was a highlight. But then on the flip side, when I actually finished playing in 2019 for a year, or I took that year out, things went badly at Sligo Rovers, and I was lucky then that James Horan called me into the squad, and I was involved then with Mayo for 2019, And that year then was another highlight, you know, winning the league, and actually just the general experience of that was another highlight. So those are kind of the two main highlights of my career.
I'm telling you something, they're not bad ones to have, Micheál. That's for certain sure. Listen, the very best of luck with the coaching. I'm so delighted we'll have someone of your knowledge and experience involved in a lot of facets of sport, not just locally, but nationally as well. And thank you for taking the time out this evening to join us. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, Micheál, good to see you. And yeah, Liam he's sacking me definitely at this point. But look, we have one more guest to go. He might leave me at that. Just to let you know what's happening, and we're going to move to Dave Heffernan in our next interview now in just a moment. So we'll chat to Dave. We will have just a general wrap up or roundup from Cathal Brady from Mayo Sports Partnership, who's been mentioned earlier on and has played a huge part in making sure that this evening came together as well. And then if you want, we will give you a chance to go back to some of the breakout rooms as well. So we'll do that for you. I think that we mightn't have one for ladies football when we go back to it. I think Sarah had to go due to time commitments, but we will have breakout rooms for you at the very end. If you don't have the time to wait, that's fine. But if you'd like to go back to them, we'll have that opportunity. So I think Dave is on the call, but if Dave Heffernan could start his video, he's probably, you know, wandered off because I've left it so late to go to him. No, I think we have him now. So Dave, listen, thank you so much for being so patient. And I'm so sorry we're a little bit late in coming to you. You're welcome.
No bother at all. Thanks for having me.
Listen, it's great to have you on the call. And look, the sports stars I've been able to speak to this evening, this certainly I can't put it down as work, even though I'm about to get sacked from it for taking liberties with Liam's time schedule. How's everything with you? You were involved again in a very big game the weekend. I know there was lots of eyes on it on Saturday evening. What's life like as an inter-pro rugby player at the moment?
Yeah, it's good. Look, obviously we were bitterly disappointed with the result of the weekend, and probably even more so with how we played as well. So, you know, we had tough meetings on Monday and Tuesday, but I suppose a good thing about rugby is you're always another game around the corner, and we've another big challenge coming up against Treviso this weekend. So hopefully we can get back on track with it.
It's non-stop, and I know that's probably true of every discipline that we've spoken about this evening, but it really is non-stop, isn't it, when you're involved at that level? Yeah,
look, it's a busy season. It is definitely, especially if you're involved in international camps and stuff as well. It can be hard to get any weekends off or anything, but I suppose you wouldn't really have it any other way, really, to be honest. And the way they structured the ORC as well now, it's good that it's not clashing with the international games. I think it's a big one for the fans. You know, there's probably a little bit of a lack of interest sometimes when international games are on. So we're all pretty happy with the way the season's been flowing, and yeah, you kind of know what you're getting in for as well. So.
Yeah, talking about international games, you were involved in that small little match earlier, that test that didn't garner too much interest against New Zealand. What was that like? Yeah,
it was a class day. The whole build up and the week leading up to it was pretty special. Unfortunately, the game didn't go too well for myself or for us. We lost that game, and I came off after about 3 or 4 minutes. I got a head knock, so I got whipped off pretty early. But the whole tour was pretty special. Yeah, it was class. See all the fans that travelled over. My dad was able to get over it as well, which is class. So yeah, it was an unbelievable tour. To get the 5 games in 3 or 4 weeks was something that hadn't really been done in a long time. So it was a really special one. Yeah, amazing. And it's great when you have family that they can travel to it like that and be involved in it. You know, I know it probably wasn't the way you wanted it to end, but tell us about the start of it all for you, Dave. You know, obviously we're talking about volunteers here in sport and your start in Ballina to where you are now. What are your kind of earliest memories? When did you take up rugby initially? I think I took up rugby at start. I think the earliest we could start was under 8, so that's when I started out. But to be honest, like when I was younger, football was the main one for me. That was what the only thing I was really interested in. Yeah, if I'm being honest, it was football probably until I was 16 or 17. That was definitely my first love, and yeah, all the volunteers and the coaches we had at the Steve Knights were unbelievable. And they were in Ballina Rugby Club as well. But yeah, I suppose we were lucky underage. We had a very good coach in Shane McCann. He's probably way ahead of his time and some of the coaching stuff he was doing with us up to under 14s, up until minors, and we had quite a successful team under him, especially under 16s. And then yeah, it was only really rugby only kind of became a thing for me when I went up to boarding school in Blackrock, and it was probably only after that again when I was involved with Connacht that I thought I could make a career out of it.
We could have had the reverse then. So Lee Keegan was saying earlier, for him, it was rugby until he was in his teens and probably nearly at under 21 level, and then got a call to Mayo GA. We could have had Dave Heffernan at cornerback for Mayo, and Lee Keegan lining out against New Zealand. But anyway, that's the way it was meant to work out. Tell us about, you've mentioned some of the early influences in terms of coaching in the Stephen Knights and in Ballina Rugby Club, but who were some of the early influences in your life when you were, and it just, I suppose, just have to be in a sporting sense?
My dad was the biggest one, definitely. Yeah, he would have been involved in a lot of coaching stuff underage, especially with football. He would have helped out in whatever way he could, and he was always taking me for extra sessions, especially when I got really interested into it when I was like 14 or 15. Yeah, the amount of times he'd get off work and bring me out training by myself for a couple of hours, I'm sure was the last thing he wanted to do. But yeah, he was definitely the biggest influence for me, and he still is. So definitely him. And then I suppose in terms of childhood heroes, it would probably be David Brady. Yeah, only lives up the road from me, and I loved the way he played. I remember going to his summer camp when I was about 14 or 15 as well. So it was class having someone, who only lived up the road from you. He was probably a bit of a superstar at the time, and he's definitely a legend in my football. So he would have been someone I really looked up to.
Yeah, and ploughing a big path in managerial circles as well. So we'll see more of David, I think, in that sphere as well. When did you realise, though, you mentioned, when you headed off to Connacht and probably when you went to boarding school or whatever, that things changed in terms of rugby and your love for it. When did you realise this could be a career for me? This could be something, I'm good at this.
It was pretty late for me, to be honest. It was not until I was maybe 20, I'd say. I had played rugby with Ballina underage, but not at the highest level probably. And when I went to Blackrock, we were playing rugby all the time up there, but I wasn't on the first team at all, and I barely made the senior cup team. When I was in my final year up there, I was on the bench. I was sub second row that day in the final. I didn't get on, but we won. And Connacht under 20s gave me a chance then, so went down there when I was 18, I think, and I broke my leg in the first game of the season. So I pretty much thought rugby was done for me then. I was going to focus on the football again, but I went back at it, and they gave me another shot the next year at Connacht under 20s, and I still didn't really think it'd be a career option for me. And then I ended up getting a cap for the Irish under 20s, and I think it was only really after that I thought that there might be a chance of getting a contract with Connacht, and they did offer me an academy contract then. So I moved from UCD down to NUIG then, and yeah, it was late. It was when I was 20 really. To be honest, it hadn't even been an aspiration of mine when I was 17 or 18 to play rugby professionally. It was something I just thought was completely out of reach. So yeah, it was probably until I was 20.
It's a good story of progression though, and I suppose that maybe not necessarily the dream or your idea of what you want in your youth is what pans out. It can go a very different direction. Do you still, I presume I know the answer to this, love playing your sport? I know we spoke about disappointment maybe when you have a big game, a derby game like the weekend, but you have a big love for it, don't you, to have to play at that level?
You do, yeah, you have to. Yeah, look, as you said, there's bad days, but the good ones definitely outweigh the bad ones, and it's you're in such a privileged position when you get to play sport professionally. It's something that every kid wants to do, and it does feel like a job sometimes, but it shouldn't. You know what I mean? It's pretty special, and it's something that not many people get the chance to do. So you can't take it for granted, and You know, when you do get those good days, then they're incredibly sweet, and you can see it in the sports ground on big nights when you get a big win. The fans, it's really, really special. And you get to share those moments with your family and stuff as well. So it's something that's extremely unique, and something I suppose when you finish up you look back on with great pride. So yeah, look, it's you know, it's a really special thing, and absolutely still love it.
Yeah. Have you aspirations to get involved in coaching? Hopefully it's a while away before you're playing at that level, but you know, would coaching be something that would interest you?
I think at an underage level, definitely. I don't know how the level of commitment and stuff at senior is incredible, and I have huge admiration for people that do it. But I think maybe at underage level when I'm finished up playing. But yeah, hopefully it's a few years down the line. Yeah, like the you completely take it for granted when you're a kid, but the amount of hours people put in for you, getting very little back. It's incredible. So I would love to have that underage capacity, but I don't think I'd be able for coaching at senior level now.
I don't know. We'll see. You'll have a few more years of playing before you decide that anyway. And I'll finish with you, Dave, the way I did with Micheál. And if you could describe for us, again, I hope for you that there's other days to come that will be the greatest moment of your career. But to date, what would you say has been a highlight for you?
Winning the Pro Title of Connacht was something that was, you know, incredible. And I suppose at the time you think, you know, it'll happen again and stuff, but obviously it's been 6 years now and it hasn't come around. So like that week, the whole build up to it, geez, I remember coming into the stadium that day in Murrayfield, and the Connacht fans were all screaming "Fields of Athenry" when you're coming off the bus, and the hairs really stood up in the back of your chest. That was an occasion, and the week after was pretty incredible as well when we came back into Galway. So that's that would be the biggest highlight. And look, obviously playing for Ireland as well. I think the time when I got my second cap was probably the most memorable one, because I waited a couple of years to get that. So those are the two big ones for me, definitely.
Yeah, well, listen, I hope plenty more to come. It might be 6 years, but hopefully not too long more. Listen, David, thank you so much for taking the time out to join us this evening. The very best of luck with your career. We will, of course, be following it with interest. And sure, you might take up a sideline with David Brady coaching in the future. Who knows? Yeah, the next Ballina Stephen Hyde's management team. Thanks a million, David. That's Dave Heffernan joining us this evening as well, and really great to have him with us. Yeah, we've had some great guests, haven't we? And a lot to digest. So what I'm going to do now, though, is let for Cathal in just to kind of give you a wrap up, because I know we are a little bit over time, and I'm just conscious that I'd like people to hear from Cathal about the efforts that went into this evening and the idea behind this evening. So Cathal Brady from the Mayo Sports Partnership I'm going to call on next, and Cathal, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Angelina, and thanks everyone for coming on board. I said it earlier on, but I feel like the priest on a Tuesday morning at the top of the pulpit. I'm speaking to the converted, but thank you guys for all coming on board. I suppose I'm asking all the volunteers. The RDOs are doing their jobs as well, but I'm asking all the volunteers here. You've acquired some information here today, and we'll be looking for you then to do the good work on the ground of spreading that information. So look at all the regional development officers have passed on the information to become a coach, a volunteer, a referee. So if there's anyone in your club, in your area, community, please, we have that information at hand. The regional development officers, they all have the information at hand as well. But if you feel like you want to come to the Sports Partnership first, we'll be there with a helping hand. I'd again like to thank the regional development officers. Thank you very much for coming out in spades. Stellar work there. I'd like to thank Ray McNamara for coming on for the Accelerate, for the inclusion training. I'd like to reiterate that by making your club inclusive, and we've seen it in other clubs who've become inclusive, that the amount of volunteers that you gain from your club by making your club inclusive, that by opening your arms, that even if it's just a once a week session, even if it's once a month session, that the amount of volunteers that you garner from opening, it's incredible. And also the Sports Partnership will be able to help with that, and I'm sure the RDOs will be able to jump on board with that as well. I have a few links to drop into the chat here. I suppose the first one is that we have more training coming up on the 6th of December. Is the PRO in the Modern World webinar on the 6th of December next Tuesday. I would implore you all to come along to, and please spread the word for everyone else in your club, in your area. It's an ever-changing role, it's more of a coordinator role, to be honest. Instagram, Facebook, emails, keeping on top of that. It's a tough job. I suppose the second point we have is the Federation of Irish Sport Volunteer of the Year for 2022 is coming on board. That link is there, and if you have a volunteer that you'd like to highlight particularly or vote for, you can follow that link. And as well, we have an evaluation form for tonight's session, so everyone could please take a minute or two to fill out the evaluation form. Please, your honesty will be truly appreciated. It improves what we can do going forward. Yeah, I'd like to apologize again to anyone from basketball. We'll hopefully get that information to you guys as well. But again, thank you all for coming. It's been a testament to each of the sports for seeing everyone coming out. And yeah, if anyone needs to reach out, Sports Partnership's here to help out, and each development officer, I'm sure you've got their contact details now. I'm sure we'll help out as well. But if you need anything, just reach out to the Sports Partnership and we'll send you in the right direction. Thank you very much.
Cathal, thank you. That's brilliant. And those resources are in there in the chat. I was just having a look as Cathal was speaking, and the evaluation form for tonight, the workshop is coming up and that. So have a look in there. There's also a great discussion going on about whether or not Germany are still in the World Cup or not, me also. Maybe you could drop that into the chat for them. I think they scored late on, but they need Spain to equalise. That's the latest I had seen in the chat there. I'm not watching it anywhere else either. But yeah, so that's Cathal Brady from Mayo Sports Partnership. And Cathal, we want to thank you for the work that you put in to tonight's event. Now, the breakout rooms are going to open again for anyone who wants to hop back into them. I know some of the development officers might have been midway through a presentation or a little bit further on, or you might have had some questions on the presentations that they gave. So we're giving you an opportunity to head back into those breakout rooms now. They'll stay open until we finish. So you have the choice. If you want to go back in, as we said, very happy for you to do that. As we also know, we're a little bit over time. So if you have to drop off, you know, if you could do the evaluation form before you go, that would be absolutely brilliant. So Liam, I think you can open up some of the breakout rooms again if we need
and
to.
if you find yourself in the wrong room, just leave the room by clicking the blue button on the bottom right hand side of your screen, and that'll bring you back to the main session, and I can reassign you. So the breakout rooms are open now. You should be automatically invited back to the rooms that you were in previously. So if there's any problem, just leave the room and come back to me. Okay.
Brilliant. Thank you, Liam.
I just stop recording now as well.